The crystal chandelier cast golden light across marble floors worth more than most people's homes. Silver spoons clinked against bone china. Designer suits whispered secrets over wine that cost $1,000 a bottle. And there stood Cyril Blackwood, 6 feet of quiet power in a tailored jacket, his hand protective on the small of her back. "She's with me." 3 simple words that cut through the poison-laced whispers like a sword through silk. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. The woman beside him, beautiful in her simple dress, chin raised despite the storm brewing around them, didn't flinch. But let me rewind this story, because the moment that shook an entire restaurant didn't happen overnight. It began months earlier in the most ordinary place you could imagine. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like you didn't belong? Like every eye was judging you, measuring your worth by your clothes, your accent, your bank account? That's exactly what happened to Amelie Mthembu the first time she stepped into Rosewood Cafe on 5th Avenue. She was 24, with hands that knew hard work and eyes that had seen struggle. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Baby girl, dignity isn't something you wear. It's something you carry inside." Amelie carried it well, even when her second-hand heels clicked against floors where celebrities sipped coffee that cost more than her weekly rent. Even when the manager, a thin woman with sharp edges, looked her up and down like she was scanning a discount rack. "You the new server?" The question dripped with doubt. "Yes, ma'am." Amelie's voice was steady, professional, but inside, her heart hammered against her ribs. The cafe buzzed with the kind of conversations that moved millions. Lawyers sealed deals over lattes. Real estate moguls planned empires between bites of artisan pastries. And in the corner booth, the one reserved for VIPs, sat a man who made the room hold its breath. Cyril Blackwood. Everyone knew the name, even if they'd never seen his face in person. Tech empire, billions in the bank. The kind of money that bought silence, influence, and respect. But what caught Amelie's attention wasn't his expensive watch or the way other customers stole glances at him. It was the little girl beside him. She couldn't have been more than 7. Dark curls framed a face that should have been bright with childhood joy, but instead carried a sadness that made Amelie's chest ache. The girl picked at her sandwich while her father typed furiously on his phone, lost in whatever crisis demanded his attention. "More juice, sweetheart." Amelie approached their table with the kind of smile that had comforted neighborhood kids back in her hometown. The girl looked up. For a moment, something flickered in those big brown eyes. Hope, maybe. Or just surprised that someone had actually noticed her. "Yes, please." Her voice was soft as butterfly wings. Cyril's fingers paused over his phone screen. He glanced up, and Amelie felt the full weight of his attention. It wasn't the dismissive look she'd gotten from other customers. This was different. Searching. "Apple or orange?" Amelie asked, keeping her focus on the child. "Apple." A tiny smile tugged at the girl's lips. "My mama used to say apple juice makes you brave." The words hung in the air like a hell breath. Cyril's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Past tense. Used to say. Amelie's heart squeezed with understanding. She knew the weight of missing someone who wasn't coming back. "Your mama was very wise," Amelie said gently, pouring the juice with careful attention. "What's your name, brave girl?" "Alira." The smile grew wider. "What's yours?" "Amelie." "It means beautiful one in my language." "Are you from Africa?" Alira's eyes lit up with curiosity, not judgment. "South Africa, yes. A place with big skies and bigger dreams." Cyril had stopped pretending to work. He was watching this exchange with an intensity that made the air between them electric. When Amelie glanced his way, their eyes met for just a heartbeat. But that heartbeat changed everything. "Thank you," he said, and his voice was deeper than she'd expected. Warmer. Of course. Amelie's cheeks flushed, and she busied herself refilling his coffee. Her hand trembled slightly, just enough for a single drop to splash onto the saucer. "Daddy, she's nice," Alira announced, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Some of those nearby tables belonged to people who made their living trading in gossip and secrets. People who would later dissect this moment like surgeons examining a specimen. But right then, in the golden afternoon light, it was just a lonely father, his grieving daughter, and a waitress who saw them as more than their bank account. Yes, Cyril murmured, his gaze never leaving Amelie's face. She is. The words felt like a promise, or maybe a warning. As Amelie walked away, she could feel his eyes following her, could sense something shifting in the carefully balanced world of the Rosewood Cafe. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that across the restaurant, a woman in diamonds was already reaching for her phone. The whispers started that very afternoon. Small at first, harmless observations that would grow into something much more dangerous. But that's a story for tomorrow. Right now, in this moment suspended between what was and what would be, Amelie simply cleared tables and poured coffee, unaware that she just stepped onto a stage where love and power would collide in ways that would change everything. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is make a powerful man feel something he thought he'd forgotten how to feel. And sometimes the most dangerous thing you can be is the woman who makes him remember what it means to be human again. The smell of burnt toast filled the cramped apartment at 5:30 in the morning. Amelie scraped the black edges into the sink, her mother's voice echoing from a decade past. Waste not, want not, baby girl. Mama never got to see America. Never got to watch her daughter pour coffee for millionaires or full dollar bills into tip jars. But her lessons lived on in every choice Amelie made, especially the hardest ones. Like the choice to smile when Mrs. Patterson from 3B made comments about those people taking jobs from real Americans. Or the choice to keep her head high when the landlord looked at her like she might not make rent. Growing up in Cape Town's townships taught you things money couldn't buy. How to stretch a meal for 3 days. How to find beauty in broken things. How to carry yourself like royalty even when your shoes had holes. Dignity, Mama used to say, pressing coins into young Amelie's palm for the corner store, isn't something they can take from you, but it's something you can give away cheap if you're not careful. Amelie learned to guard hers like treasure, even when the other kids at school had newer uniforms and fuller lunchboxes. Even when Mama worked double shifts, cleaning offices, and came home with her back bent like a question mark. The day Mama died, sudden heart attack at 43, 16-year-old Amelie made a promise over that hospital bed. She'd make it to America. She'd build the life Mama dreamed of. She'd never let anyone make her feel small. 7 years later, standing in the Rosewood Cafe bathroom mirror, she repeated that promise. Her reflection stared back, tired but determined, broke but not broken. "You've got this," she whispered to herself, the same pep talk she'd given herself every morning for the past 3 months in this job. The cafe buzzed with morning rush energy. Lawyers grabbing espressos before court. Socialites planning charity galas over green smoothies. And in the corner booth that was becoming familiar territory, Cyril Blackwood and his daughter. They've been coming in every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 weeks now. Same time, same booth, same careful distance between father and child that made Amelie's heart ache. Today felt different, though. Today, Alira looked up when Amelie approached with a smile that could power the whole building. "Amelie, Daddy, it's Amelie." Cyril's eyes lifted from his tablet. That same searching look she'd felt before, like he was trying to solve a puzzle written in a language he didn't speak. "Good morning, brave girl," Amelie said, ruffling Alira's curls. "And good morning, Mr. Blackwood." "Cyril," he corrected, and something warm flickered in his voice. Just Cyril. The small gesture hit her harder than it should have. In her world, powerful men demanded titles, distance, respect spelled out in formal syllables. They didn't invite familiarity from women who serve them coffee. "Amelie, can you sit with us?" Alira's question was innocent, but it landed like a bomb in the busy cafe. Other customers glanced over. The manager's eyebrows shot toward her hairline. "Sweetheart, I'm working. Just for a minute." Those big brown eyes were impossible to resist. "Daddy doesn't talk much, and I get lonely." The words sliced through whatever professional barriers Amelie had built. This wasn't about money or status or the invisible lines that separated their worlds. This was about a little girl who missed having someone to talk to. 1 minute, Emily said, sliding into the booth beside Alira. She could feel Cyril's surprise, could sense the shift in the room's energy as other patrons realized what they were witnessing. Tell me about South Africa, Alira said, leaning close like they were sharing secrets. Is it like the Lion King? Emily laughed, the first real laugh she'd had in weeks. Some parts, maybe, but mostly it's beautiful in different ways. Big mountains that touch the sky. Oceans so blue they don't look real. And sunsets. She paused, remembering. Sunsets that paint the whole world gold. Like magic. Alira's eyes were wide. Exactly like magic. Cyril hadn't said a word, but Emily could feel his attention like heat from a fire. When she glanced his way, something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Recognition of the loneliness they both carried. I should get back to work, she said finally, but Alira caught her hand. Will you tell me more stories tomorrow? The question hung in the air between them. Tomorrow meant this wasn't just a one-time kindness. Tomorrow meant choosing to step deeper into whatever this was becoming. If your daddy doesn't mind, Emily said, looking directly at Cyril. His answer came without hesitation. I don't mind at all. The rest of her shift passed in a blur of routine tasks with an undercurrent of electricity. Every time she walked past their booth, she felt Cyril watching her. Not the predatory attention she'd gotten from other men, but something deeper. Curious. Respectful. When they finally left, Alira hugged her legs goodbye. A quick, fierce embrace that left Emily fighting tears. Cyril lingered at the register, paying a check that included a tip generous enough to cover her groceries for the week. Thank you, he said quietly, and she knew he wasn't talking about the coffee. She's a special little girl. She hasn't smiled like that since. He stopped, jaw tightening. Since her mother. The words hung between them like a bridge neither quite knew how to cross. Emily wanted to reach out, to offer comfort the way she had with Alira. But this was dangerous territory, the space where professional distance dissolved into something more personal. I'm sorry for your loss, she said simply. He nodded, then seemed to gather himself. I'll see you Thursday? It was a question disguised as a statement. Permission to keep coming back. Permission to let whatever was growing between them continue to grow. I'll be here. That night, Emily lay in her narrow bed, staring at the water stain on her ceiling that looked like a butterfly. For the first time since Mama died, she let herself dream of something bigger than just surviving. Maybe love could find her here in America. Maybe it could look like a widowed father and his lonely daughter. Maybe it could grow in the space between coffee orders and shared stories. But as she drifted toward sleep, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered warnings. Men like Cyril Blackwood didn't fall for women like her. And women like her, who forgot that lesson, usually got their hearts broken in ways that never quite healed. Still, when Thursday morning came, she found herself choosing her best dress and taking extra care with her appearance. Because sometimes hope was stronger than wisdom. Sometimes love was worth the risk of falling. The playground at Central Park was empty except for early morning joggers and dog walkers when Cyril pushed Alira on the swings. Her laughter echoed off bare trees, a sound he'd almost forgotten existed. Higher, Daddy. Higher. He pushed gently, watching her dark curls fly in the wind. For a moment, just one perfect moment, the weight of running a tech empire lifted off his shoulders. No board meetings, no quarterly reports, no pressure to be the brilliant businessman everyone expected him to be. Just a father pushing his daughter on swings. Daddy, Alira's voice turned serious as she slowed to a stop. Are you lonely? The question hit him like a physical blow. 7-year-olds weren't supposed to see through the armor adults built around their pain. But Alira had always been different. Too smart, too aware, too much like her mother in ways that both comforted and destroyed him. Why would you ask that, sweetheart? Because you get sad when you think I'm not looking. She twisted the swing chains, making herself spin in slow circles. And because Emily makes you smile with your eyes. From the mouths of babes. Cyril sat on the swing beside her, feeling suddenly ancient at 35. How did you explain to a child that her father had built walls so high around his heart that he'd forgotten what it felt like to want to tear them down. Adults get sad sometimes, he said carefully. It's normal. Mama used to be sad too, Elira said, matter of fact in the way children could be about devastating truths. Before she got really sick, she told me she was sad because she might not get to watch me grow up. Cyril's throat closed. 3 years since Sarah's death, and grief still ambushed him at unexpected moments. In Elira's laugh, in the way she tilted her head when she was thinking, in questions that came from a place of pure, heartbreaking wisdom. Your mama loved you very much, he managed. More than anything in the world. I know. Elira started swinging again, small legs pumping with determination. But she's gone, and you're still here, and you shouldn't be sad all the time. The reproach was gentle but clear. His daughter was worried about him. His daughter had been watching him carry this weight and feeling responsible for lightening it. What if we went for ice cream after the cafe today? He said, changing the subject before his chest cracked open completely. Can we ask Emily to come? There it was again, the name that had been circling his thoughts like a persistent melody. The woman who'd managed to break through Elira's carefully built walls in a matter of minutes. Elira, please, Daddy. She's nice, and she tells good stories, and she smells like vanilla and sunshine. Vanilla and sunshine. Trust a child to notice things that adults try to ignore. Like the way Emily moved through the cafe with quiet grace. Like the way her smile transformed her entire face. Like the way she'd looked at him last Tuesday, not like a billionaire or a business opportunity, but like a man. It had been so long since anyone looked at him like just a man. We'll see, he said, which in parent speak meant maybe, and Elira was smart enough to take the victory. An hour later, they were back in their usual booth at Rosewood Cafe. But today, instead of burying himself in work, Cyril found himself watching Emily move between tables. The way she listened, really listened, when customers spoke. The way she remembered orders without writing them down. The way she handled difficult customers with patience that seemed genuine rather than forced. She'd grown up poor, he could tell from a dozen small things. The way she never wasted anything, not even sugar packets. The way she treated every tip like a gift. The way she held herself like someone who'd learned early that respect had to be earned, not expected. It made her the opposite of every woman who tried to get his attention since Sarah died. Those women saw dollar signs and power. Emily saw him and Elira as people who might need an extra smile or a moment of kindness. Good morning, brave girl, Emily said, approaching their table with that warm smile that seemed to light up the entire corner of the cafe. Emily, Elira bounced in her seat. Daddy said maybe you could come get ice cream with us after. He crawled up Cyril's neck. He hadn't exactly said that, but 7-year-olds were notorious for hearing what they wanted to hear. Did he now? Emily's eyes met his, and he saw surprise there. And something else? Interest, maybe, or just polite confusion about why a billionaire would want to share ice cream with his waitress. I was thinking more along the lines of asking if you'd like to join us, he said, finding his voice. If you're not too busy after your shift. The words hung in the air between them. Around them, the cafe buzzed with its usual energy, but their corner felt separate from all that. Suspended in possibility. Emily glanced around, clearly aware they were being watched by other customers, other staff. I don't know if that's appropriate. Please. Elira's voice was small but determined. I don't have any friends here, and Daddy doesn't talk to anyone except work people who make him frown. Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. Cyril watched Emily's face soften as she looked at his daughter. He could almost see the internal struggle. Professional boundaries warring with genuine affection for a lonely little girl. What kind of ice cream? She asked finally, and Elira's face lit up like Christmas morning. Any kind you want. Daddy says I can have 2 scoops because it's almost my birthday. Your birthday? Emily's attention turned back to Cyril. When? Next Thursday, he said. She'll be 8. 8 is very important, Emily said seriously to Elira. In my country, 8 is a lucky number. It means good things are coming. What kind of good things? The kind you don't expect, but need most. The words seemed to carry extra weight, and when Emily's eyes met Cyril's again, he felt something shift inside his chest. Something that had been frozen for 3 years starting to crack and warm. So, is that a yes to ice cream? Elira pressed. Emily smiled. That's a yes to ice cream. Later, Cyril would remember this moment as the one where his carefully ordered life began to spiral beautifully out of control, where he stopped being just a father and a businessman and started being a man again. But right now, watching his daughter's joy and feeling Emily's quiet warmth, he just felt lighter than he had in years. He didn't notice the woman at table 12 taking pictures with her phone. He didn't see her typing furiously into her messages, sending those pictures to contacts in gossip blogs and society magazines. All he saw was possibility stretching out in front of them like a road leading somewhere new, somewhere dangerous, somewhere worth the risk. The ice cream shop on Columbus Avenue had been Elira's choice. Bright colors and cartoon characters on the walls, the kind of place that celebrated childhood without apology. Cyril felt overdressed in his business suit, but Emily had changed out of her cafe uniform into a simple sundress that made her look younger, less formal, more beautiful. I want to try that one. Elira pressed her face against the glass display case, pointing at a bright purple creation that hurt to look at. That's ube coconut, the teenage server said with a grin. It's made with purple yam. Super popular. Purple yam ice cream? Cyril raised an eyebrow. Are we sure that's food? Emily laughed, the same genuine sound he'd heard in the cafe, but softer here. More intimate. In South Africa, we eat sweet potatoes for dessert sometimes. Purple yam isn't so different. See, Daddy? Emily says it's okay. Elira was already bouncing on her toes. Where are you getting, Emily? Vanilla, she said without hesitation. Boring. Elira giggled. Classic, Emily corrected. Sometimes the simple things are the most perfect. Cyril found himself studying her profile as she spoke to his daughter. The afternoon light streaming through the shop windows caught the gold undertones in her dark skin. Her hands moved gracefully as she talked, and he noticed she wore no rings, no jewelry except small silver earrings that caught the light when she turned her head. Everything about her was understated, elegant without trying, beautiful without effort. What about you, sir? The server was waiting, and Cyril realized he'd been staring. Chocolate, he said quickly. Just chocolate. They found a table by the window, Elira between them, chattering happily about school and friends and the book she was reading. For the first time in months, she seemed like a normal 8-year-old instead of a little girl carrying too much sadness. Tell Emily about your drawings, Cyril encouraged, and watched his daughter's face light up. I draw animals. Big ones like elephants and lions. Daddy says they're very good. I bet they are, Emily said. Do you know that in Africa, elephants are considered very wise? They remember everything and take care of their families. Like how Daddy takes care of me. Exactly like that. The simple comparison shouldn't have affected him so much, but something in Emily's tone, approval, maybe, or respect, made Cyril's chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't name. Emily, do you have kids? Elira asked around a spoonful of purple ice cream. No, sweetheart. No children. Do you want some? Because I could share Daddy. He has enough love for lots of people. He just forgot how to use it. Cyril nearly choked on his chocolate ice cream. Elira. What? Mama said you used to smile more before she got sick. Maybe you need someone to remind you how. The silence that followed was loaded with things neither adult knew how to say. Cyril stared at his daughter, amazed and mortified by her 8-year-old wisdom. Emily studied her vanilla ice cream like it held the secrets of a universe. Your mama sounds like she was very smart, Emily said finally. She was. But she's gone now, and it's just me and Daddy, and sometimes he gets scared. Scared of what? Elira looked directly at her father, those big brown eyes seeing too much. Scared that if he loved someone new, it means he didn't love Mama enough. The words hit like bullets, each one finding its target with devastating accuracy. Because she was right. Every time Cyril felt even a flicker of interest in another woman, guilt crashed over him like a wave. Sarah had been his first love, his only love, the mother of his child. How could he honor her memory while opening his heart to someone else? Love isn't like money, brave girl, Emily said gently. You don't run out of it by giving it away. The more you love, the more you have to give. Really, really, in my family, we believe love grows when you share it. Like planting seeds. The more you plant, the more beautiful your garden becomes. Cyril felt something crack open in his chest. Not break, open. Like a window being raised after years of keeping it closed. Can I tell you a secret? Elira leaned closer to Amelie, but spoke loud enough for the whole shop to hear. I think Daddy likes you. Elira. Cyril's face burned with embarrassment. Well, you do. You smiled different when you talked to her. And you bought new cologne. I did not buy new cologne. Yes, you did. I saw the bottle in your bathroom. It smells like Christmas trees. Amelie was trying not to laugh, her hand pressed over her mouth, eyes dancing with amusement. The whole scene was ridiculous. A billionaire being called out by his 8-year-old daughter in an ice cream shop while his waitress tried not to giggle. It was also perfect. For the record, Amelie said once she composed herself, Christmas trees smell very nice. The walk back to the cafe took longer than necessary. Elira skipped ahead, still high on sugar and the joy of having two adults focused on her happiness. Cyril walked beside Amelie, hyper-aware of the space between them, close enough to catch hints of that vanilla scent Elira had mentioned, far enough apart to maintain propriety. Thank you, he said as they paused at the cafe entrance. For this afternoon, she hasn't been this happy in months. Neither have you, Amelie observed quietly. He looked at her then, really looked. She was watching him with those warm brown eyes, and he saw understanding there. Not pity. He couldn't have handled pity. But recognition of someone else who'd known loss and learned to carry it without letting it break them. It's complicated, he said. The best things usually are. They stood there as the afternoon crowd flowed around them. Tourists and locals, parents with strollers and teenagers with shopping bags. Normal people living normal lives without billion-dollar businesses or dead wives or the kind of complications that came with crossing social lines. Daddy, Elira called from inside the cafe. Come see. They have pictures of famous people on the wall. The spell broke. Amelie stepped back, professional distance sliding back into place like armor. I should go, she said. Early shift tomorrow. Of course. Thank you again for... Papa, I like her. The words stopped him cold. Elira was standing in the cafe doorway, no longer the giggling child from the ice cream shop. She looked older suddenly, wiser, like she was delivering a verdict that would determine their future. I know you do, sweetheart. No, Papa. I really like her. Like how you used to like Mama. The comparison should have felt like betrayal. Instead, it felt like permission. Amelie was already walking away, but she turned back at Elira's words. Her eyes found Cyril's across the busy sidewalk, and something passed between them, acknowledgement of what his daughter had just made impossible to ignore. This wasn't just kindness anymore. It wasn't just a lonely man enjoying the attention of a beautiful woman, or a child forming an innocent attachment to someone who treated her well. This was the beginning of something that would change everything. As he watched Amelie disappear in the crowd, Cyril felt the last of his careful walls beginning to crumble. But he didn't see the photographer across the street, capturing every moment of their goodbye. He didn't know that their innocent afternoon was about to become front-page news in the society blogs that fed on the private lives of New York's elite. All he knew was that for the first time since Sarah died, he was ready to risk his heart again. The question was whether the world would let him. The photograph was everywhere. Cyril stared at his laptop screen, scrolling through gossip blog after gossip blog, each one featuring the same image. Him and Amelie walking down Columbus Avenue, Elira between them, looking for all the world like a family. The headlines were vicious. Tech billionaire's coffee shop romance. Cyril Blackwood slumming it with the help. Gold digger alert. Waitress targets grieving widower. His assistant Marcus had sent the links with a terse message. We need damage control. Now, but Cyril couldn't stop staring at the photo itself. In it, Amelie was laughing at something Elira had said, her face bright with genuine joy. He was looking at them both with an expression he barely recognized, contentment. Peace. They looked happy. They looked right together. And that was exactly the problem. His phone had been ringing all morning. board members expressing concerns, investors asking questions, PR firms offering crisis management services. The vultures were already circling. Daddy. Elira appeared in his home office doorway, still in her pajamas. Why are you frowning at your computer? He closed the laptop quickly. Just work stuff, sweetheart. Nothing important. Is Emily coming to my birthday party? The question hit like a physical blow. In all the chaos of damage control, he'd forgotten. Elira's 8th birthday was in 3 days. She'd been planning it for weeks, making lists of games and decorations, and, increasingly, assuming Emily would be there. We'll see, baby girl. That means no. Elira's face fell. Did I do something wrong? Is that why you're sad? You didn't do anything wrong. He pulled her onto his lap, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. Adults just have complicated problems sometimes. Problems about Emily? Too smart. His daughter was always too smart. Some people think. He struggled for words an 8-year-old could understand. Some people think we're too different from each other. That's stupid. Elira's response was immediate and fierce. Different is good. You taught me that. Out of the mouths of babes. His phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Board meeting moved to this afternoon. They want answers. Cyril knew what that meant. The board wanted him to end whatever this was before it became a bigger problem. Cut ties. Move on. Protect the company's reputation and his own. It was the smart business decision. It was also the last thing he wanted to do. At the Rosewood Cafe, Emily felt the stares like pinpricks on her skin. Customers whispered behind their menus. Her coworkers shot her sideways glances. Even the manager had pulled her aside with concerns about maintaining professional boundaries. She'd seen the blogs. Read the comments. The internet had already tried and convicted her as a manipulative gold digger targeting a grieving widower and his vulnerable daughter. Some of the words were so cruel they made her stomach turn. But what hurt worse was the truth buried in the accusations. She was just a waitress. Cyril was a billionaire. No matter how she felt, no matter what was growing between them, the world would always see their connection as transactional. You okay, hun? Kelly, the other morning server, slid up beside her at the coffee station. You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that. For what it's worth, I think you two are cute together. And his little girl adores you. The kindness was unexpected, and Emily felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. Just ignore the haters. They're jealous because they've never had a man look at them the way he looks at you. But as the morning wore on, Emily wondered if Kelly was wrong. Maybe the haters were right. Maybe she was fooling herself, thinking someone like Cyril could ever really want someone like her. When he walked in at his usual time, her heart did its familiar skip. But something was different today. The easy warmth was gone, replaced by a tension that made her chest tight. Elira ran to her as always, but Cyril hung back, his face carefully neutral. Are you coming to my birthday party? Elira asked before Emily could even say hello. Oh, sweetheart. Emily glanced at Cyril, reading the answer in his closed expression. I don't think. Please? Daddy said you might be busy, but it's my birthday. And I already told everyone about you. The desperation in the little girl's voice broke Emily's heart. But she could see the impossible position Cyril was in, could read the strain in every line of his body. Can I talk to your daddy for a minute? She asked gently. They stepped outside onto the busy sidewalk, the noise of traffic providing cover for their conversation. I saw the articles, Emily said without preamble. I figured you had. His voice was clipped, professional. The warmth from yesterday might as well have never existed. Is this where you tell me it was all a mistake? That we're too different from different worlds? All the usual lines. He flinched like she'd slapped him. It's not that simple, isn't it? Her voice rose slightly, drawing attention for passers-by. She forced herself to lower it. I'm not stupid, Cyril. I know what I am and what you are. I know how this looks. Then you understand why. I understand that you're scared. The words came out sharper than she intended. I understand that it's easier to listen to what other people think than to figure out what you actually want. What I want doesn't matter. His composure cracked slightly. I have responsibilities. A daughter. A company. People depending on me. And I have nothing to lose, is that it? Just a waitress who got ideas above her station. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? She stepped closer, close enough to see the conflict in his dark eyes. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're choosing them over us. Over her. She nodded toward the cafe window where Elira sat alone in their booth, looking small and confused. She's already lost one mother, Cyril said quietly. I won't let her get attached to someone else who might not stay. Who said anything about leaving? The question hung between them like a challenge. Around them, the city moved at its relentless pace, but their corner of the sidewalk felt frozen in time. The board meeting is in 2 hours, he said finally. They want me to make a statement. Distance myself from this situation. From me, you mean? From a scandal. From a bad press. From anything that might hurt the company. Emily felt something inside her chest turn cold and hard. I see. Do you? Do you really understand what this means? The pressure, the scrutiny, the constant judgment? This is just the beginning. If we continue this, it will only get worse. She was quiet for a long moment, watching tourists stream past with their cameras and shopping bags, living their uncomplicated lives. My mother cleaned offices for 20 years, she said finally. Rich people's offices. She scrubbed their toilets and emptied their trash and listened to them talk about her like she was invisible, like she wasn't smart enough to understand what they were saying about people like her. Cyril's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. She used to come home and tell me, "Baby girl, never let anyone make you feel ashamed of who you are. Your worth doesn't come from other people's opinions." Emily met his eyes steadily. I won't let you make me ashamed of caring about you, or of being cared about by you. This isn't about shame, isn't it? Her voice was soft but cutting. Because it sounds like you're ashamed of being seen with me. Like you're ashamed that your daughter loves me. Like you're ashamed of whatever this is between us. The accusation hit its mark. She could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, the way his hands clenched at his sides. I need to think, he said. No, you don't. Emily stepped back, putting distance between them that felt like miles. You've already decided. You just don't want to be the one to say it. She turned to go back inside, but his voice stopped her. Emily. She looked back, hoping against hope that she'd see the man from yesterday. The one who'd watched his daughter with such love, who'd looked at her like she might be something special. Instead, she saw a businessman making a calculated decision. I'm sorry, he said. The words were final, professional, kind but distant. They were also a lie, and they both knew it. Inside the cafe, Elira looked up hopefully as Emily approached their table. Are you coming to my party? Emily's heart shattered into pieces she wasn't sure she'd ever be able to put back together. I can't, brave girl, but I want you to have the most wonderful birthday ever, okay? You deserve all the happiness in the world. She kissed the top of Elira's head, breathed in her little girl scent one last time, and walked away before the tears could fall. Behind her, she could hear Elira asking her father why Emily was sad, why she couldn't come to the party, why everything had to be so complicated. Cyril's answers were too quiet to hear, but Emily could imagine them. Gentle explanations about how sometimes adults made difficult choices, how sometimes caring about someone meant letting them go. All the reasonable, responsible lies adults told themselves when they chose fear over love. She made it to the employee bathroom before the sobs came. And 3 blocks away, in his car, Cyril sat with his head in his hands, wondering how doing the right thing could feel so much like destroying everything that mattered. The boardroom at Blackwood Technologies felt like a courtroom. 12 faces around a polished table, all watching Cyril with expressions ranging from concern to barely concealed disgust. The optics are terrible, Margaret Shunn, his longtime board member, said without preamble. A billionaire and his waitress? The media is calling it everything from a publicity stunt to a midlife crisis. Cyril kept his face neutral, but inside, every word felt like a blade. My personal life has never interfered with business before. It has now. Thomas Wright, the board chairman, slid a tablet across the table. Stock prices, social media sentiment analysis, PR nightmare metrics spelled out in red numbers and downward arrows. This affects investor confidence, Margaret continued. Our image, the foundation's credibility, everything we've built. Everything I built, Cyril corrected quietly. The room went silent. Dangerous territory, reminding them who really held the power here. But Cyril was past caring about political games. The solution is simple, Thomas said after a pause. A statement. Clear boundaries. Distance yourself from the situation and it disappears. Her name is Amelie. What? Her name is Amelie Thembu. She's not the situation. She's not a PR problem to be managed. Cyril's voice was steady, but something was building beneath the surface. She's a woman who lost her mother at 16, who worked 3 jobs to get to America, who makes my daughter laugh for the first time in 3 years. Margaret leaned forward. Cyril, we understand you're lonely. Do you? The question came out sharper than intended. Do you understand what it's like to watch your wife die slowly? To explain to your 7-year-old daughter why mommy isn't getting better? To spend 3 years feeling like you're drowning in grief and responsibility? The room shifted uncomfortably. These are successful people who dealt in facts and figures, not messy emotions. Do you understand what it's like to finally find someone who sees you as more than a bank account or a business opportunity? Someone who cares about your daughter not because she has to, but because she wants to. We're not questioning your feelings, Thomas said carefully. We're questioning the wisdom of acting on them publicly. By publicly, you mean existing in the same space as her, being seen with her, acknowledging her humanity. You're being dramatic. Am I? Cyril stood, pacing to the window that overlooked the city. Somewhere down there, Amelie was probably getting ready for her evening shift, carrying the weight of his rejection like stones at her chest. Because it seems to me that you're asking me to pretend she doesn't exist to protect your comfort. The company's reputation will survive. We make technology that changes lives. Our products speak for themselves. He turned back to face them. What won't survive is my daughter's faith in me if I keep choosing fear over what's right. The silence stretched until Margaret broke it. So what are you saying? I'm saying that Amelie matters to me. She matters to Elira. And if that makes you uncomfortable, we need to discuss whether this board is the right fit for this company. The threat was subtle but clear. They needed him more than he needed them. But even as he spoke the words, doubt crept in. Was he being reckless? Selfish? Was he risking everything for a relationship that might not even survive the pressure? His phone buzzed. A text from his driver. Miss Elira asking when we pick up Miss Amelie for party. What should I tell her? The party. Tomorrow. Elira's 8th birthday. And she was still expecting the woman who'd become her light in the darkness. The woman he'd just walked away from 2 hours ago. I need to go, he said abruptly. Cyril, we haven't finished. Yes, we have. He was out the door before anyone could stop him, but the damage was already done. The board would be making calls tonight. Contingency plans. Ways to protect themselves if their CEO had truly lost his mind over a waitress. But all Cyril could think about was the look in Amelie's eyes when he'd said he was sorry. The way her shoulders had straightened with dignity even as he broke her heart. The way Elira had cried herself to sleep last night, asking why Amelie couldn't come to her party. Across town, Amelie stirred soup in her tiny kitchen and tried to ignore the hollow ache in her chest. The evening shift had been torture. Every customer stare a reminder of her newfound notoriety. Every whisper a fresh wound. She made it through by remembering her mother's voice. Pain is just love with nowhere to go, baby girl. But love always finds a way. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Miss Amelie? A young voice, barely above a whisper. It's Elira. Amelie's heart stopped. Sweetheart, how did you get this number? I found Daddy's phone. He has your number from when you gave it to him at the cafe. The words came out in a rush, like she was afraid of being caught. Are you really not coming to my party? The question was a knife through Amelie's chest. Oh, brave girl. Did I do something wrong? Did I make you sad? No, sweetheart. You could never make me sad. You're the brightest, most wonderful girl I know. Then why won't you come? Daddy won't tell me. He just looks sad and says it's complicated. Amelie closed her eyes, fighting tears. How do you explain prejudice and social pressure and adult cowardice to an 8-year-old? Sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't make sense, she said finally. But that doesn't mean those choices are right. So you'll come. The hope in that small voice was devastating. Alira, please? I already made you a special invitation. And I told everyone at school about you. And I drew you a picture of elephants because you said they take care of their families. Emily's resolve crumbled completely. Can I talk to your daddy? He's in his office being sad. But I can get him. No, don't. But it was too late. Emily could hear small feet running, then Alira's voice in the distance. Daddy. Emily wants to talk to you. A pause. Then deeper footsteps. A door closing. Emily. His voice was rough, tired. Alira shouldn't have called you. She's a little girl who doesn't understand why the adults in her life are being stupid. We're not being, aren't we? Emily interrupted. I've been thinking, Cyril, about what you said, about pressure and scrutiny and all the reasons this won't work. And you're probably right. Your world and mine don't mix. The board will never accept me. The media will tear us apart. Your friends will whisper. My friends will say I'm crazy for trying. He was quiet, but she could hear him breathing. But here's what I keep coming back to. None of that matters to Alira. She doesn't see color or class or bank accounts. She sees people who care about her, and she cares about us. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're teaching her that love isn't worth fighting for. That other people's opinions matter more than your own heart. The words hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they could cross. The board meeting didn't go well, he said finally. I figured. They want me to cut ties completely. Make a public statement. Will you? The question was simple, but the answer would determine everything. Not just for them, but for the little girl who'd already lost one mother and was about to learn whether the man she trusted most would choose her happiness or his reputation. I don't know, he said, and the honesty in his voice broke her heart all over again, but also gave her hope, because a man who was certain he was making the right choice wouldn't sound so lost. Your daughter asked me to come to her party, Emily said quietly. Emily, I told her I'd think about it. And before he could respond, before he could give her more reasons why it was impossible, she hung up. Tomorrow was Alira's 8th birthday. Tomorrow, Cyril would have to choose between the safe path and the right one. Tomorrow, they would all learn what love was really worth. Alira stood at her bedroom window, nose pressed against the glass, watching every car that turned onto their street. She'd been there for an hour, still in her pajamas despite her father's gentle attempts to get her dressed for breakfast. She's not coming, is she? The question was matter of fact, but Cyril heard the heartbreak underneath. He sat on her bed, surrounded by the birthday decorations they'd put up together last night. Balloons in her favorite colors. Streamers. The carefully wrapped presents that suddenly seemed inadequate. I don't know, baby girl. Why are grown-ups so complicated? She turned from the window, and Cyril was struck by how much older she looked. 8 years old today, but her eyes held the weight of someone who'd already learned that the world could be cruel and confusing. Because we forget sometimes that the simple things are the most important. Like love. Like love. Alira climbed onto the bed beside him, curling into his side the way she had when she was smaller. Mama would have liked Emily. The words hit like a physical blow. In 3 years of grief, Alira had never once compared anyone to her mother. Sarah had been perfect, untouchable, a memory wrapped in golden light. What makes you say that? Because Mama always said the most important thing was how people treated me. Not what they looked like or how much money they had, but whether they were kind. Alira looked up at him with those serious brown eyes. Emily is kind, Daddy. She sees me. I know she does. Then why won't you fight for her? 8 years old, and she understood what he'd been too scared to face. This wasn't about board meetings or public relations or protecting the company. This was about whether he had the courage to choose love over fear. Whether he had the courage to show his daughter that some things were worth fighting for. Get dressed, birthday girl, he said suddenly. We have a party to get ready for. Is Emily coming? I don't know, but I'm going to ask her. At the Rosewood Cafe, Emily's shift was supposed to start in 20 minutes, but she sat in her car in the parking lot, staring at the gift-wrap package on her passenger seat. A set of watercolor paints and a sketchbook. For a little girl who drew elephants and believed in the wisdom of 8-year-olds and magic. She'd bought them yesterday, before the board meeting, before Cyril's painful honesty about not knowing what he wanted. Part of her had hoped, stupidly, maybe, that love would find a way. Part of her still hoped. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Alira. I borrowed Daddy's phone again. Today is my birthday, and I made a wish. I wish for you to come to my party because wishes on birthdays are the most powerful kind. Please don't let my wish be wasted. Love, your brave girl." Emily closed her eyes and felt her mother's presence like a warm hand on her shoulder. "What would you do, Mama?" But she already knew the answer. Her mother had cleaned offices for 20 years, enduring condescension and casual cruelty, but she'd never once apologized for who she was or where she came from. "Your worth doesn't come from other people's opinions," she'd said over and over. "It comes from knowing who you are and standing firm in that truth." Emily looked at the gift again, at the cafe where she'd have to face whispers and stares and judgment, at the choice between safety and courage. Then she started her car and drove in the opposite direction. The Blackwood house was everything she'd expected, elegant, imposing, the kind of place where people like her usually only entered through service doors. But today she walked up the front steps with her head high, carrying a gift for a little girl who'd taught her that love was always worth the risk. She rang the doorbell. Footsteps. A pause. Then the door opened, and Cyril stood there in jeans and a button-down shirt, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. "You came," he said, and his voice held wonder. "I made a promise to a very wise 8-year-old. Emily." Alira's shriek of joy echoed through the house as she launched herself into Emily's arms, birthday dress flying. "You came. You really came. Happy birthday, brave girl." Emily held her tight, breathing in her little girl scent, feeling something broken inside her chest begin to heal. "Did you make a wish?" "Yes, and it came true." Alira pulled back, beaming. "The best birthdays happen when the people you love are together." Over Alira's head, Emily met Cyril's eyes. "All of them. All the important ones," he said quietly. "We need to talk." The party was small, just a few of Alira's school friends, some neighbors, family friends who'd known her since birth. But Emily felt every curious glance, every whispered conversation that stopped where she walked by. She also felt Cyril's presence beside her, steady and protective. When Mrs. Henderson from next door made a snide comment about appropriate company, he stepped smoothly into the conversation. "Emily has been wonderful with Alira," he said, his voice pleasant, but with an edge that warned against further comments. "We're lucky to have her in our lives." The simple declaration of ownership, our lives, not just Alira's, sent warmth through Emily's chest. Later, when the other children were playing games in the backyard, Alira pulled Emily aside. "I have something for you," she whispered, producing a folded piece of paper. "It's your special invitation. I made it myself." Emily unfolded it carefully. A drawing in colored pencils, 3 figures holding hands under a rainbow. A tall man, a woman with dark skin and a beautiful smile, and a little girl in the middle. At the bottom, in careful 8-year-old handwriting, "You are invited to be part of our family. RSVP to my heart. Love, Alira Blackwood." "Oh, sweetheart." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Do you like it? It's the most beautiful invitation I've ever received. So you'll come? To be part of our family?" The question was innocent, but it carried the weight of everything. Emily looked across the yard to where Cyril was helping a child who'd scraped her knee, his gentle competence on full display. "I like that very much," she said. "But your daddy and I have to figure out how to make it work." "That's the easy part," Alira said with 8-year-old confidence. "You just love each other and don't let anyone tell you it's wrong." From the mouths of babes. As the afternoon wound down, Cyril found Emily in the kitchen, helping to clean up wrapping paper and cake plates. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Old habits. My mother taught me to always help with cleanup." "Your mother sounds like she was a remarkable woman. She would have loved Alira." Emily paused in her folding of napkins. She would have loved watching her daughter fall for a little girl who sees the world with such clear eyes. And what about her father? The question was quiet, vulnerable. What would she think about him? Emily turned to face him fully. She'd think he was a good man who'd forgotten how to trust his own heart. She'd think he loved his daughter enough to be brave for her, even if that bravery might cost him everything. My mother used to say that a life lived in fear isn't really living at all. They stood in the quiet kitchen, the sounds of Alira's laughter drifting in from the living room, where she was showing her friends her new art supplies. "The board wants me to make a statement," Cyril said finally. "I know. I keep thinking about what kind of man I want to be, what kind of example I want to set for her." He nodded toward the sound of his daughter's voice. "She's watching everything I do, learning what love looks like from how I handle this. What do you want her to learn?" The question hung between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. "I want her to learn that love is worth fighting for," he said. "I want her to learn that other people's prejudices don't define your worth. I want her to learn that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up and say, 'This matters to me,' even when the whole world is telling you to sit down." Then, "Teach her. Will you help me?" The question was an invitation to step fully into the storm that would surely come. Media attention, board pressure, society gossip, all the ugly realities of choosing love across lines that weren't supposed to be crossed. But it was also an invitation to be part of something beautiful. A family rebuilt on courage and hope. A little girl who needed to see that love could triumph over fear. "Yes," Emily said simply. And in the living room, Alira looked up from her new art supplies and smiled, somehow knowing that her birthday wish had been granted in full. The boardroom felt different this time. Colder, more hostile. Cyril sat at the head of the table, facing 11 people he'd trusted with his company's future, and realized that trust had been a mistake. "The statement is already drafted," Thomas Wright said, sliding a paper across the polished surface. "Simple, clean. You were briefly seen with a service industry worker, but there was no relationship. You're committed to focusing on your daughter and the company." Cyril didn't touch the paper. "No, Cyril, be reasonable." "I'm being reasonable. I'm also being honest." He leaned back in his chair, projecting a calm he didn't feel. "There's a relationship. There will continue to be a relationship. And anyone who has a problem with that can tender their resignation." The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret Chun was the first to break it. "You're making a mistake that will destroy everything you've built. Everything I've built is strong enough to survive my personal happiness. The investors won't see it that way. Then we'll find better investors." "Cyril," Thomas's voice carried the weight of 30 years in boardrooms. "You're not thinking clearly. This woman, her name is Emily. This woman has completely clouded your judgment. You're risking billions of dollars, thousands of jobs, your daughter's financial future. For what? For love." Cyril's voice was quietly dangerous. "You're right. I'm risking all of that for love. Because that's what people do when they understand what actually matters." Around the table, faces ranged from shocked to disgusted. These were people who thought in quarterly reports and market shares, not in the language of the heart. "If you go through with this," Margaret said carefully, "if you continue this relationship publicly, we'll have no choice but to consider your fitness to lead this company." The threat was clear. They were prepared to remove him if he didn't comply. "I see." Cyril stood slowly, buttoning his jacket with deliberate precision. "Then let me be crystal clear about something. This company exists because of my vision, my work, my sacrifices. I built it from nothing while most of you were still figuring out what you wanted to be when you grew up." His voice never rose, but the power behind it filled the room. "You can question my judgment. You can worry about optics and investor relations and whatever other corporate nonsense helps you sleep at night. But you cannot and will not dictate who I love or how I live my life." "The shareholders," someone began. "The shareholders invested in me, in my ability to make decisions that drive this company forward. If you don't trust that ability, then you don't trust the foundation this company is built on." He walked to the door, then paused. "I'll be making a public statement tomorrow, but it won't be the one you wrote." The restaurant was the same one where our story began. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, the kind of place where power players made deals over $1,000 bottles of wine. But this time, Cyril had requested it specifically. This time, he was walking in with purpose. Emily wore a simple black dress that made her look elegant without trying. She'd spent an hour getting ready, knowing that tonight they would cross a line there would be no coming back from. "You're sure about this?" she asked as they approached the maitre d'. "I'm sure about you," Cyril replied. "The rest we'll figure out as we go." The reaction was immediate. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Phones came out, discreetly aimed in their direction. The whispers started before they'd even been seated. But Cyril kept his hand on the small of Amelie's back, guiding her through the maze of tables like she belonged there, like they belonged together. "Mr. Blackwood," a voice called out. James Morrison, a business rival who'd been trying to poach Cyril's clients for years. "How lovely to see you. And your companion." The pause before companion was deliberate, loaded with insinuation. "James." Cyril's voice was polite but cold. "I'd like you to meet Amelie Mthembu." "Amelie, this is James Morrison. He runs a third-rate consulting firm and has the social skills to match." Amelie bit back a smile at the elegant insult. "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Morrison." James's face reddened, but before he could respond, his wife leaned forward with predatory interest. "Tell me, dear, what do you do for work?" The question was a landmine, designed to expose the class difference everyone was pretending not to see. "I work in food service," Amelie replied calmly. "I serve coffee to people who think their worth is measured by how much they can afford to pay for it." The response was perfect, honest but with just enough edge to let them know she wouldn't be intimidated. "How quaint," Mrs. Morrison replied. "I think so too," Cyril said smoothly. "There's something refreshing about people who work with their hands instead of just moving other people's money around." The insult was subtle but unmistakable. James Morrison made his fortune in investments, moving other people's money around for profit. As they finally made it to their table, Amelie was quiet. "You didn't have to defend me," she said once they were seated. "Yes, I did. And I always will. Even if it costs you friends? Business relationships? Those weren't friends. There were people who smiled at me because of my bank account." Cyril reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "Real friends wouldn't care who I love." The word hung between them like a gift waiting to be unwrapped. "Love." Amelie's voice was barely above a whisper. "Yes, love." His thumb traced circles on her skin. "I love how you see the best in people. I love how you make Alira laugh. I love your strength and your dignity and the way you never apologize for who you are." Tears prick her eyes. "Cyril, I love that you challenge me to be better than I thought I could be. I love that you're brave enough to be here, knowing what it costs." His voice dropped lower. "And I love that you're looking at me right now like I'm the only person in this room." "You are," she whispered. "For me, you always are." The moment was interrupted by a flash, someone taking pictures from across the room. Cyril tensed, but Amelie squeezed his hand. "Let them," she said. "Let the whole world see that you chose love." So when the pictures appeared online an hour later, they showed exactly that. A powerful man and the woman he loved, looking at each other like they were the only two people who mattered. The headlines were vicious, as expected. "Billionaire's shameful display." "Coffee shop romance goes public." "Cyril Blackwood flaunts his midlife crisis." But buried in the comment sections, among all the hate and judgment, were other voices. "Beautiful couple. Love doesn't see color or class. Good for him. Money can't buy happiness, but love can. That's how a man should look at the woman he loves." At home that night, Alira was already asleep, worn out from her birthday celebration. Cyril and Amelie sat in his living room, her head on his shoulder, processing the evening. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "None. You. Only that I waited so long to fight for this." His phone had been buzzing all evening with calls and texts. Board members demanding emergency meetings. Investors expressing concern. PR firms offering damage control. But also messages of support from unexpected places. Employees who'd worked with him for years, saying they admired his courage. Old friends who'd been waiting to see him happy again. "Whatever happens next," Amelie said softly, "we face it together." Together, he agreed. Neither of them knew that across town, emergency board meetings were being called, that papers were being drawn up to challenge his leadership, that the morning would bring a corporate war unlike anything the business world had seen. All they knew was that love had won tonight. In a room full of judgment and prejudice, they'd chosen each other openly and without shame. And that was worth whatever storm was coming. The headlines screamed from every newsstand in the city. Board revolt at Blackwood Tech. Billionaire CEO faces coup over romance. Love story or corporate disaster. Cyril stared at his laptop screen in his home office, watching his life's work unravel in real time. Stock prices plummeting. Emergency shareholder meetings called. His own board of directors publicly questioning his fitness to lead. All because he dared to love someone the world deemed inappropriate. Daddy. Elira appeared in his doorway, still in her school uniform. Some kids at school said mean things about Emily. His heart clenched. What kind of mean things? They said she's just trying to get your money, and that she doesn't belong with us. Elira's young face was troubled. I told them they were stupid, but what, sweetheart? But what if other people keep being mean to her? What if she gets tired of people saying bad things and goes away? The fear in his daughter's voice broke something inside Cyril. This was what his choice had cost, not just his own reputation, but his child's peace of mind. Come here, he said, pulling her onto his lap. What did I teach you about what other people think? That their opinions don't define who I am. That's right. And the same is true for Emily. She knows who she is. We know who she is. What matters is how we treat each other, not what strangers say. But what if she leaves anyway? It was the question that haunted his nightmares. What if the pressure became too much? What if Emily decided that loving him wasn't worth the constant battle? His phone rang. Marcus, his assistant, sounding frazzled. Sir, I have Margaret Chen on line 1, Thomas Wright on line 2, and about 50 reporters wanting statements. The Times is running a front-page story tomorrow about the board revolt. And... Not now, Marcus. Sir, with respect, this can't wait. They're calling for an emergency shareholder vote. They want you removed as CEO. The words hit like a physical blow. Removed from the company he'd built from nothing. Everything he'd worked for destroyed. How long do I have? The vote is scheduled for Friday. 3 days. 3 days to save his life's work or lose everything. At the Rosewood Cafe, Emily felt like she was under a microscope. Every customer stared. Every conversation stopped when she walked by. The manager had already suggested she take some personal time until things died down. Translation: disappear until the scandal blew over. Yu Kai Hun. Kelly, her co-worker, touched her arm gently. You look like you're about to break. Just tired. But it was more than that. The weight of being at the center of a media storm was crushing. Every article calling her a gold digger. Every comment section filled with vile speculation about her motives. Her phone buzzed constantly with friend requests from strangers, interview requests from reporters, threats from people who thought she was destroying a good man's life. Maybe you should take that time off, Kelly suggested. Let things cool down and prove them right. That I'm just some opportunistic waitress who can't handle the heat. Or prove that you're smart enough to protect yourself. The words stung because they carried truth. What was she fighting for, really? A man who might lose everything because of her? A future that seemed increasingly impossible? Her shift ended at 4. Instead of going home, she found herself walking to Central Park, to the playground where Cyril had told her he'd taken Elira just days before. It felt like months ago. She sat on a bench, watching other people's children play, and tried to imagine a world where loving someone didn't have to be a battlefield. Her phone rang. Cyril, where are you? His voice was tight with strain. The park. I needed air. I'm coming to get you. Cyril, no. The press will. I don't care about the press. A pause. Actually, that's not true. I care very much, but not the way you think. 20 minutes later, he found her on the bench. Instead of his usual business attire, he wore jeans and a Yankees cap pulled low, trying for anonymity. It didn't work. 2 photographers were already trailing him at a distance. We need to talk, he said, sitting beside her. I know. About the board vote. About everything you're losing because of me. That's not what this is about, isn't it? She turned to face him, and he saw the toll the past few days had taken. Dark circles under her eyes. A weariness that went bone deep. Your life's work is at stake, Cyril. Everything you've built. I built a company. But you and Alira, you're my life. Pretty words. But what happens when the reality hits? When you lose Blackwood Tech? When your daughter's future is compromised because her father chose love over wisdom? You think I chose wrong? The question hung between them like a challenge. Around them, the park buzzed with normal life, joggers, dog walkers, families enjoying the afternoon. People whose biggest worry wasn't whether their love story would destroy everything they cared about. I think you chose with your heart instead of your head, Emily said finally. And I think that makes you a better man than most. But it might also make you a ruined one. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe everyone was right. Maybe we are from different worlds. Maybe some lines aren't meant to be crossed. The words were knives, each one finding its mark. But underneath the pain was something else. Love so deep it was willing to sacrifice itself. You're protecting me, he realized. You're trying to save me from the consequences of choosing you. Someone has to be practical. No. His voice was firm, certain. I've been practical my whole life. I built a billion-dollar company by being practical. I married the right woman from the right family for practical reasons, even though it turned out to be love too. He took her hands, forcing her to look at him. But Sarah taught me something before she died. She made me promise that if I ever got a second chance at love, I wouldn't waste it being practical. She said life was too short and love too precious to sacrifice on the altar of other people's expectations. Tears slipped down Emily's cheeks. She sounds like she was wise. She was. And she would have loved you. She would have loved how you make Alira laugh. She would have loved how you challenge me to be braver than I thought possible. Even if that bravery costs you everything. Especially then. He wiped away her tears with gentle thumbs. Because what's the point of having everything if you don't have anyone to share it with? A flash went off nearby. The photographers had moved closer. By tomorrow, this moment would be splashed across every gossip blog and newspaper in the city. The billionaire and his waitress, crying in the park. But Cyril didn't flinch. Instead, he stood and offered Emily his hand. Come on, let's go home. Home to Alira. She's been worried sick about you. About us. His smile was tired but genuine. Besides, I have a shareholder meeting to prepare for. And I want my family with me when I do it. Your family, you and Alira. The only shareholders who really matter to me. As they walked out of the park together, ignoring the photographers' flashing cameras, Emily felt something shift inside her chest. Not hope exactly, but something stronger, determination. If Cyril was brave enough to fight for them, she could be brave enough to stand beside him in that fight. But neither of them knew that across town, the board was already preparing for war. That leaked documents would hit the morning news. That the battle for Blackwood Technologies and their future together was about to explode into something far bigger than either had imagined. The only question now was whether love could survive when everything else was burning down around them. Friday morning arrived like a judgment day. The Blackwood Technologies building buzzed with reporters, protesters, and curiosity seekers. Signs reading, "Love wins," competed with others declaring, "Protect American values." The circus had come to corporate America. Inside the 32nd floor boardroom, shareholders filed in with grim faces. This wasn't just about quarterly earnings or market strategy. This was about whether a man's personal choices could destroy a billion-dollar empire. Cyril stood at the windows, overlooking the city, watching the crowd gather below. In a few hours, they would vote. His life's work hung in the balance. "You ready for this?" Marcus asked, approaching with a stack of documents. "As ready as I can be." The media response has been intense. 60-40 split, mostly along generational lines. Older shareholders are concerned about stability. Younger investors are calling this a human rights issue. Cyril nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. On Emily, who'd insisted on coming despite his protests. On Alira, who was staying with his sister, safely away from the media storm. On the choice that had brought them all to this moment. "Sir," Margaret Chin appeared in the doorway, looking haggard. "We need to talk. One last time." "There's nothing left to say, Margaret. There's everything left to say." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Withdraw the statement you're planning to make." end a relationship publicly. You can still save this. Save what? A company built on lies? A reputation bought with cowardice? A legacy? Thousands of jobs? Your daughter's future? My daughter's future depends on learning that love is worth fighting for. That integrity matters more than profit margins. Margaret's face softened slightly. Cyril, I've known you for 15 years. You're a good man. But good men sometimes make choices that hurt the people they're trying to protect. And sometimes they make choices that show those people what courage looks like. The meeting room filled slowly. Shareholders, board members, legal representatives. The atmosphere was tense, expectant. Everyone knew they were witnessing something historic, whether the fall of a business empire or the birth of a new kind of corporate leadership. At exactly 10 o'clock, Thomas Wright called the meeting to order. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to address concerns about the leadership and judgment of CEO Cyril Blackwood. Mr. Blackwood has requested to make a statement before the vote. Cyril stood, straightening his tie. In the gallery, he spotted Emily sitting quietly in the back, her presence giving him strength. 3 months ago, he began, I met a woman who changed my life. Not because she was wealthy or connected or could advance my career, but because she saw my daughter as more than just a rich man's child. Because she treated a lonely little girl with kindness when she had nothing to gain from it. Murmurs rippled through the room, but Cyril continued. You've all read the headlines. You know the accusations. Gold digger, social climber, opportunist. Let me tell you who Emily Mthembu really is. He walked to the center of the room, commanding attention through sheer presence. She's a woman who lost her mother at 16 and still managed to build a life of dignity and purpose. She's someone who works 2 jobs to pay for night school because she believes education can change everything. She's a person who tips the busboy at the cafe even though she makes minimum wage because she knows what it's like to need every dollar. The room was silent now, caught up in his words despite themselves. She's also the woman who taught my daughter to love again, who showed me that grief doesn't have to be a life sentence, who reminded me that the best parts of who we are have nothing to do with our bank accounts. Mr. Blackwood, Thomas interrupted, while touching, this doesn't address the concerns about your judgment, doesn't it? Cyril's voice sharpened. Because I think it addresses the most important judgment any of us makes, what we choose to value, what we choose to fight for. He turned to address the full room. I built this company on the belief that innovation comes from seeing things differently, from challenging conventional wisdom, from having the courage to pursue ideas that others think are impossible. His eyes found Emily's across the crowded room. Love is the same way. It doesn't follow market research or demographic studies. It doesn't care about stock prices or board approval. It happens between people who see something in each other worth fighting for. This is a business meeting, someone called out, not a romance novel. You're right, Cyril acknowledged. This is about business, the business of being human, the business of leadership that means something beyond profit margins. He pulled out his phone, showing the screen to the room. This morning, I received over 3,000 emails from employees. You want to know what they said? They said they're proud to work for a company led by someone who chooses courage over conformity. They said they want to build technology that brings people together, not tear them apart. The murmurs grew louder, more supportive. I also received calls from 12 major clients, reassuring me of their continued partnerships. From investors who see this as proof that Blackwood Technologies thinks beyond the bottom line. From universities wanting to discuss how we can better support diversity in tech. Thomas Wright's face was growing redder by the minute. Mr. Blackwood, you're cherry-picking responses. Am I? Cyril smiled. Marcus, would you read the quarterly projections? His assistant stood, consulting his tablet. Based on current contracts and pending deals, we're looking at 37% growth over last quarter. Our highest numbers in company history. Shocked silence filled the room. It turns out, Cyril continued, that authenticity is good for business. That standing for something beyond profit actually attracts the kind of partners and employees who build lasting success. He walked back to the front of the room, his confidence growing with each step. But let's say I'm wrong. Let's say this vote goes against me. Let's say you decide that a CEO's personal life is more important than his professional results. He shrugged. Then you'll have a new leader who understands that fear drives decision-making, that other people's opinions matter more than innovation, that love is a weakness to be managed rather than a strength to be celebrated. The challenge was clear. Vote against him. And they were choosing fear over courage, conformity over authenticity. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Thomas asked tightly. Cyril looked directly at Emily, who was watching him with tears in her eyes and pride written across her face. Yes, to anyone who thinks love makes you weak, I'd like to introduce you to the strongest person I know. Emily, would you stand up? Every head turned as she rose gracefully, facing the room full of strangers who judged her without knowing her. This woman has endured 3 months of public humiliation with dignity. She's faced threats and cruelty and prejudice, and she's still here. Not because she wants money or status or anything I can give her, but because she believes love is worth fighting for. His voice rang out clear and strong. She's with me, not because I'm rich or powerful or can provide her with a lifestyle, but because we choose each other every day despite the cost. Because we're building something beautiful in a world that seems determined to tear it down. The room erupted. Some applause, some angry shouts, complete chaos as reporters scribbled frantically and photographers captured every moment. But Cyril only had eyes for Emily, who was walking down the aisle toward him, her head high, her smile radiant. When she reached him, he took her hand. Whatever happens, he said quietly, we did this together. Together, she agreed. Thomas Wright banged his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. We'll now vote. All those in favor of removing Cyril Blackwood as CEO? Hands went up around the room. Margaret Chin's hand trembled before she raised it. Several other board members followed suit. All those opposed? More hands. The newer board members, the ones who joined when Cyril's vision was already proven. Several major shareholders who'd watched their investments grow under his leadership. The count was close, closer than Cyril had expected. The motion fails, Thomas announced grimly. By a margin of 3 votes. The room exploded again, but this time the energy was different. Celebratory. Relieved. Cyril had won. More importantly, they had won. As the meeting dissolved into congratulations and arguments, as reporters shouted questions and photographers captured the moment, Cyril and Emily stood in the center of it all, hands clasped, facing whatever came next together. So what now? She asked. Now we go home to our daughter and figure out how to build a life that's worth the fight we just won. Our daughter. The words were barely a whisper, but they carried the weight of every dream Emily had never dared voice. If you'll have us, both of us, all the complications and chaos and beautiful mess that comes with loving the Blackwood family. Yes, she said without hesitation. Yes to all of it. Later that evening, as news channels dissected the day's events and social media exploded with opinions on corporate romance and modern love, the 3 of them sat in Cyril's living room. Alira was curled between them on the couch, chattering excitedly about her day at school, how all the kids had seen her daddy on TV, how proud she was that he'd been brave. So, Emily is really going to be part of our family? She asked for the 3rd time. If she wants to be, Cyril said. Forever and ever. Emily smoothed the little girl's hair, marveling at how natural it felt, how right. Forever and ever, brave girl. Good. Alira snuggled deeper into their embrace. Mama would be happy. She always said the best families are the ones you choose, not just the ones you're born with. As night fell over the city, the media circus continued outside. But inside, in the quiet warmth of home, love had won its greatest victory, not in boardrooms or headlines or stock prices, but in the simple truth of 3 people who'd found each other against all odds and chosen to build something beautiful together. True wealth, as Emily's mother had always said, wasn't measured in gold. It was measured in love, dignity, and the courage to stand up for what mattered most. And by that measure, they were the richest people in the world. 6 months later, the same restaurant where it all began hosted a different kind of scene. Cyril Blackwood, still CEO of his thriving company, sat at a corner table with his family. His wife, they'd married quietly in a small ceremony with only a lira and close friends, and his daughter, now 9 and happier than she'd ever been. "She's with me," he'd said that first night. 3 simple words that changed everything. Now, watching Emily help Alira with her homework while other diners smiled at the sweet family scene, he understood the deeper truth. They were all with each other, in love, in courage, in a beautiful mess of building a life worth living. And that was worth everything they'd risked to get there. If this story moved you, if you believe love truly conquers judgment and fear, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our powerful love stories. Drop a heart in the comments if you think Cyril made the right choice. And share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that courage and love can change everything. What was your favorite lesson from Cyril and Emily's journey? Tell us in the comments below. Your words might inspire someone else to fight for their own love story. Until next time, keep believing that the best things in life are always worth fighting for. #.